What was great about that story is that when you take a step back and you watch that series on FX, it's really at heart, it's about passion, it's about commitment, it's about growing something that's an underdog into something that is just creating bonds, not only in Wales, but across the world now. So talk me about how you managed to take a brand that was heritage in terms of, I think it's the third oldest soccer club that's out there, and now it's something that's household across the globe.
Yeah. It's been one of the most interesting journeys and odysseys I've been on in my entire life. We talked a little bit about this backstage. I never want to come out here and sort of like, how those guys in TED Talks are like, well, here's how I saw it in slow motion early on and I executed. Life doesn't work like that. Like we're all, on a spectrum of winging it. I had no idea what to expect with Wrexham. I admittedly kind of adopted a bit of a fake it till you make it kind of thing, because I understood that this could grow into something really interesting, and of course it exceeded any of my wildest projections or dreams. But what I loved about it is that it's hyper local, but has the potential to be global. And it's managed to kind of be both at once, which sort of seems like a bit of a paradox, and I think it's because cities all over the world are seeing themselves reflected back in Wrexham. It's a town that is, fallen on some harder times. It's a town that sort of feels like when we got there was a sense of, there's always people who are incredibly optimistic and warm, but there were also a lot of people who sort of felt like they had this cloud of cynicism around them, and they sort of, you heard a lot, why us? And you heard nothing good happens to us or for us here. And I get emotional when I think about that, because I think that's something people in towns all over the world feel. They feel like they're alone, and they feel like it's just not going to work out for them or happen for them. So I thought it was really interesting, because it's a great example of like, if you can grow community in the right way, and you can, foster and nurture some of those connections, then it feels like a model or a template that could be applied to all kinds of different communities. It doesn't have to be football, or I'll say soccer because I'm in New York. If it was in the UK, thered be a messy stabbing death. But so it could be cricket, it could be all kinds of. So it's interesting how much, how symbiotic the relationship is between a football club or something that is central to that community and the community itself. So, and then part of the show, part of the thinking in the show is to not center myself or Rob, and really try to center the town. And when we show up in the show, generally it's just because we sort of had to jump in and fill a gap or something. But there are episodes that don't need us at all, and the stories just fall off the trees there. I remember my first day there in Wrexham. I went to the church. There's a big church in the town, and they're very proud of it. It's how many centuries old, beautiful building. I met the vicar. And he was very nice. Mostly when I meet vicars, generally they tell me I'm going to burn in hell. I met an archbishop in Montreal recently who said, Mr. Reynolds, I saw Deadpool, and you could spend a little more time in a building like this. I said, yes, Father. Do I say Father? I don't know, which is why I should maybe spend more time in a building like that. But I met this vicar in Wrexham, and this was early on in the process, really when we were leaning on another production crew to help us create this documentary. And it's a great example of sometimes it's better just do the thing yourself, especially if you're a storyteller. But they weren't really focusing on these incredible stories. They kind of our partners on the documentary really wanted to focus on myself and Rob. And we were like, I just think for the long-term health of this, you really have to focus on the town. And he said, well, yeah, there's not a lot of, I don't know how many stories there are here and stuff. And I'm literally, the vicar's standing right beside me, and I say, he says, I have to leave, I'm so sorry. And I say, where are you going? And he says, I'm off to an exorcism. And but I loved meeting you guys, and thank you so much. I just really can't wait. So I'm gonna go off. And the guy we were working with, at the time was just like, oh, that's crazy. Anyway, let's do another interview with Rob and Ryan over here. I was just like, dude, the guy is going to go take a demon out of a kid or something. What are you doing? You should be running after this person to see if you can. So it was just a great example. Right out of the gate, you're like, oh wow, this is going to be fun. And stories are everywhere micro, tiny stories that feel so big, and then big stories that don't feel like they deserve as much energy or as they get. So it's been a pretty wild. God, I realize I've literally taught myself to continue talking while inhaling. That's what's happening right now. You could ask your next question because
I mean,
someone pulled the string backstage, and now it's an old chatty Cathy doll.
I mean,